Ja, voldsomt.
I'm so sorry to disturb you. You know, it's great to see you as always. Today I have Geir Afdal here with me. Geir is a professor of education here at MF, and as you may know, he's been working on like tolerance and values for a very long time, and he's like one of our real experts on these issues. And today he will present an aspect of his current research. I think it's an article that is currently under review. And the topic of his talk today is the tolerance of the tolerant, negotiations of tolerance in the everyday life of progressive liberals. And as I guess all of you here knows, he has like 13 minutes to present his point of view. We have 13 minutes for questions and answers. And if you're with us here, you have to walk over to the mic here and post your questions there. Or if you're with us on Zoom, you can put your questions in the chat or the Q&A function. So please, Geir.
Thank you very much, Liv Ingeborg. So tolerance has been a theme that I sort of started with. It was the theme of my dissertation a long time ago. Then I left it. I was pretty tired of tolerance. But then my sabbatical year, 17, 18, turned up, and I needed a project. And I always thought that, and I also addressed this in my PhD, that tolerance and emotion is really underdeveloped because it's very much in the rational philosophical debate that tolerance and theorizing tolerance is happening. And philosophers has this inclination towards rational argumentation. So the title of my project was Tolerance in Motion and Emotion. Fancy title, I thought. So this is the personal context and show how research may be done. So I went to this group, a friend of mine and colleague of mine did that. It was an adult class in compassion. And he said, oh, there is so much happening there. There is so much difference, so much emotions, and I videotaped. It was every week for a semester. I videotaped everything, and I didn't get one emotion on tape. These were just fantastic, civilized people, telling stories and so on. So there was really nothing to start to analyze. So I thought, okay, what do I do now? Sitting there, I was quite fascinated by this Southern Californian approach to life, coming from the rural Norwegian farmer district. And that was kind of, these were kind of very nice people, actually. You could probably not find nicer people. But then they paid a lot of money and spent a lot of time to be nicer. So they were tolerant, and then they did all of these things in order to become more tolerant. So I thought, okay, that needs to be researched. So and the more wider context is that liberal tolerance, as I said, has been very much theorized in moral philosophy and political philosophy. It has also been researched in social science, but then mainly in quantitative social science as kind of a given. So what has not been done very much is to kind of horizontally to describe the everyday tolerance of liberal people. It's become a sort of a very normative field that liberals do tolerance like this and that, but nobody knows actually. It's just a recipe. So I started interviewing, as always, these people in this group, very fascinating group. And my horizon then, my theoretical horizon was on one hand, the difference between what you could call more procedural tolerance, that is, and liberalism, that is a liberal framework for society that kind of embrace all kind of political differences and all religions and all kind of point of views. So liberalism as a neutral frame on one hand, on the other, liberalism as a position. And that's called perfectionist liberalism and perfectionist tolerance, but it may also be called in these days muscular tolerance. That's a phrase that is more and more used. And that is in the context very much in Europe, where difference is threatening, maybe, somebody argue anyway, the democratic order of society and the liberal kind of framework. And then you need muscular liberalism in order to kind of socialize immigrants into these positions and ways of life. In the US, the map is very, very different because of the polarization. But still, it's the muscular liberalism is also a thing there. But then, how am I liberal today in this polarized situation? Am I towards more procedural liberalism, or do I kind of front liberal values? So that was on one hand. How do this group maneuver and navigate in that landscape? I need to check my time. And then on the other hand, I developed, and I didn't intend to use that, but I ended there anyway, this typology of tolerance in my dissertation and later, and that is tolerance 1, 2, 3. And to be short, tolerance 1 is thin tolerance. It is tolerance as forbearance or not interfering. So it's just leave things as they are. Tolerance 2 is tolerance as a character project. It is becoming tolerant, so expanding the classic tolerance approach. So tolerance is not something I do or do not do, actually, but it's something I am. So I need to develop myself as a tolerant character. Tolerance 3 is tolerance as openness, and that is, tolerance is actually symmetrical. So we need to go into real and radical differences in order not only to not interfere or to develop, but actually manage difference. But in that managing of difference, I also need to kind of be open to changing myself and learning from difference. So I use that framework to analyze these interviews, both of those frameworks. And what did I find? Well, I found that in this group, everybody was on the kind of becoming better track. So everybody was working on themselves in order to become a better person and a more tolerant person. So tolerance for these people was developing this liberal, tolerant identity and character. And that was a life journey. And I got all these stories about this development. The problem with tolerance 2 is that it does not manage radical difference, because I can develop myself as long as I want to, but at some point there are other selves and other structures that are so different that I cannot solve that with working on myself, actually. I need to go into that kind of difficult difference. And that created some very fascinating stories, very many of them in family parties, because they have very much liberal friends. They also work in liberal organizations or workplaces. Many of them have changed jobs, actually. But at family parties, they cannot. They are stuck. So we have all these mother-in-laws and nieces and all these people who really confront them. And it's almost turning into physical violence. I'm not kidding. This is serious business. So there are a lot of difficult differences. I will just read a part of a quote. This is a pastor in a Southern Californian church. Okay, because I had a terrible struggle just with I'm from Detroit, I'm blue collar Democrat, I will never change, you know. And I pastor a congregation that is full of Republicans, conservatives, liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call people. And so this last political climate was a serious challenge for me. And I had people who said, I'm voting for Trump because of the Muslims. And what do you do with that as a pastor? And how do you love these people when you want to smack them, you know? And really, I came to a place where I began to fear for my soul. because I dislike the current administration so much, and it's so intolerant, and I am so intolerant of them. And it's really became for me, a crisis of faith that I had to stop and walk it back. Many stories like this. Okay, so what do you do then? Well, they, to make it very brief, they turn to tolerance 1 or tolerance 3 as a second kind of solution. So some just say, okay, I give up, I just pull back. And that's very much not a principle decision, but a very pragmatic decision. One say that she worked with on a youth camp, and there were a lot of conservative groups there because they had all the money. And she said that, okay, but I'll go there and then I will not discuss with you, but I'll take all your money and then use it to fight you. So it's very kind of calculated utilitarian kind of rationality in that. But you also had tolerance 3 actually, where they have this ambivalent understanding that liberalism is the best way of life, but still there are so many ways of lives. And this is not solved, this kind of ambiguity. So at some point they go to 3 and say, okay, I see that, and I can go into that, but it's really hard and really difficult. So the argument then is that this group of progressive liberals, as they call them themselves, they are absolutely not on the processor or procedural liberal account. Actually, and that is very interesting, they never mention right at all, rights. So they didn't use the language of rights, which is very strange, because if you had asked them about rights, they could go on like for a couple of hours, I guess. But when they are using their language when in use, I coded, so it's like 1 or 2 times everybody used the vocabulary of rights. So they are kind of not using that way of thinking. So they are on the perfectionist side, but they're not muscular. They are not politically engaged. The perfectionist is to become more perfectionist themselves, not for the society to be more muscular, and so on. The second argument is that, and this goes back to moral philosophy, that a theory of tolerance needs to be plural, I think, in order to understand the complexity of tolerance. So instead of fighting against each other, because there are so many theories of tolerance, one should see actually empirically what kind of tolerance and understandings are actually used and how are the different uses negotiated. That's it.
Wow, thank you.
Wow.